So, do I regret Raiden? Yeah, the answer is yes. Sadly, this character just does not keep up with anybody. She really just doesn't. She has her normal weapon whenever I'm using her as a DPS, but, I'm not really keeping up with anybody, right? Like, we're talking about a C3 R1 Raiden, and she's getting out DPS by any Natlan character, I think, at this point. Would I take Chaska over Raiden is a question that I have to ask, and that's crazy. I don't think I would. I think Raiden is a little better than that, but at the same time, Raiden... not exactly a great character for me. She does like 500,000 order slash. It's not really, amazing. She's okay. She does, whatever she needs to, but like, that's it. Like, she's okay, right? She's not like, oh wow, blow out of the water. And I mean, she's a 2.0 character. We can sort of expect that to happen. So I'm not expecting this 2.0 character to still be one of the best characters in the game, but she is C3, and I just don't see how I could ever recommend like people summon for Raiden. Like, she just isn't good anymore. She simply isn't. I think I can give her an okay at best. I think that's it. At this point, it's really just her team carrying her, depending on what kind of team you use with her. Most people, I would say, at this point should be using Overload, because Overload seems to be her best team, seems to have the best, character selection. We have, Taser, which is Fiorina, Yelan, or Yelan should activate with Raiden's hit. I think she does. But Fiorina, Yelan, and then like Kujosara or something, or Fischl maybe. Just, we have Taser. It's okay. Not bad. It's all right. But yeah, this character doesn't really impress me anymore. She used to, 500k initial slash, 70,000 normals. Wow. Now we have like 1.6 million slash and 500,000 charge attacks. And that's not an exaggeration. And we're talking about one con less. I mean, you're just like, she's been power crept. She has. And I see a lot of people still talk like she's one of the best DPSs in the game, or, whatever you want to call her, a driver, whatever. She's not. She's not. It's purely hype behind the character. And I can understand that, right? She has to be, I think, the most popular character by far. I think she is, because this character had so much build up, so much everything. It was right as when like Genshin was starting to sort of, tone down, and, the players were quitting and stuff. But this character, people were still fresh to the game. This character comes out, and then it's amazing. It's like, oh my god, this character is amazing, right? She was very strong, especially if we're talking about 500,000 damage, right? At like when in 2.0. I mean, we're talking about Ayaka's burst alone hitting 800,000 damage, and I mean, that's insane, unheard of, right? But then we have a C2 Raiden doing, easily over 1 million damage per rotation. It's just, she's very strong. If you had her C2 back in the day, you know how strong she was. But C3 Raiden feels basically worse than any Fontaine character, right? Any Fontaine character, if you take C3 Raiden and you compare him to a C1 or R1 version of a Fontaine character, you're not feeling better, right? You're not. Wriothesley is the best bet you have, and I think that is a very good argument. I think, for that statement, right? If you take that statement and you're trying to disprove it, I think Wriothesley is a very good argument. Do I think any other character, though, holds a single ounce of like ability to also fail on that statement? I don't think they do. I don't think they do. The reason why I don't think they do is because I don't think Chiori is a character that we should be comparing to Raiden at all. Chiori's a support, right? She is. She's an off-field damage support. Raiden, if you use her in off-field damage support, that's way worse than Chiori, for one. And then, you have to use her on-field, right? Whereas Chiori being a support, they're so different in what they provide, you can't really directly compare the characters, right? So if we, look more into the DPS aspect, and, because Sinyun, I could easily say is better than Raiden at this point, right? Because she is a very good support. Chiori's a mid support, right? So there's not really, like, these Chiori and Raiden, they're there, but they're basically just doing separate things, and they're not really excelling at what they both do. So it's kind of like, can you compare them? Can you? But I think what you can compare is like Sinyun being tremendously amazing for plunge teams. And, you know, when she was out, basically any plunge team with a pyro DPS or anything wanted Sinyun, and that character did very well. Raiden did not do so well, right? She didn't, right? She wasn't like very good. Like, you weren't gonna say Raiden is very good when we had this guy in the game, right? We don't do that. We don't say Raiden is very good when Arlecchino was out in the game. So in 4.0, she got devoted to just being good. And now we just have so many characters that are actively above her, and there's just there's not a change that's gonna happen, right? These characters are just above her, and there's enough for me to say that I don't think that C3 Raiden is like, you know, is good anymore. I don't think so. I think you can make the argument. You're not insane for saying she's good. She can do stuff. But in terms of like where she's actually placed on a tier list, it's like I have like easily half the DPSs in the game probably above her, right? It's how the game is played out, and the baseline of characters now is above C3 Raiden, and that is just a fact. So yeah, I do regret this character because she just is mid at this point. She's not really doing anything, you know, special. And let's talk about something else. Her build sucks. Nobody Raiden build is good, apparently. You know, just nobody's. You know, this is like the hardest character to build behind Shangling, and then this character. Because this character wants energy recharge. This character wants attack percent. This character wants crit rate. This character wants crit damage. This character also wants, am I forgetting something? I don't know. I don't think I am. She wants so many stats, and it's so hard to balance her around all those stats that it's genuinely just like, it's so frustrating to build this character. It is. There's no way around it. This character is the most frustrating character to build in the entire game. There is just no way around it. So yeah, that's another reason why I don't like, you know, using her, because let's go ahead and look at my build for her. Well, hold on. Let me give her actual weapon so you guys can see what I was kind of running with. So yeah, let's look at this. 73% crit rate. Do you want to know something? Those characters who were doing, 500k charge attacks. Yeah. 55%. Hold on. Okay, 95%. That is where it comes from. That is the biggest issue with Raiden. She's really good, but her building sucks. Raiden can be as good as people want her to be on paper, but when it comes to building this character, getting her a high crit rate without making this crit damage look pathetically low is an insane task. And you want to know how I know it's an insane task? Because if I go to Akasha, I pull up my own Raiden. My Raiden is a top 23% Raiden. So, you know, it's not nothing, but if we look at her, you know, she's, you know, low on crit damage, and then she's also, you know, apparently 77% is the average 1%. That's just sad. Top 1%, the average is 77% crit rate. It's sad. It genuinely is, because we have these characters now who just, why would I want to run a character who has 73% crit rate when I have 95% crit rate, and the 95% crit rate character does more damage? That's a huge thing that has also changed since, you know, Fontaine, and that is, you know, just the massive amount of crit rate because of the artifact sets that they provide, right? And then even on Arlecchino, I have 80%, and that feels awful. Guys, if you were back here in the day when Arlecchino versus Mavuika, you know, first happened, and, you know, people were like, oh no, Arlecchino's still good, and, you know, whatever, you know, you can say all you want, but man, you know, well, Mavuika trolled me a lot too. Let's be real. Mavuika trolled me a lot too. 5% crit rate. It's, you know, I don't think it's 5%. Let's just say that. But Arlecchino, she hurt more. Arlecchino gave me a lot less crits for obvious reasons. She has 10% less crit rate, or 15% less crit rate. It was awful. It's simple. It's just awful. And I never want to go back to using a character who is at, you know, like, this is not a bad build for Arlecchino. I like this build for Arlecchino. But man, do you get so much value out of these crit sets. That's a huge thing for Raiden. She doesn't have a crit set. Well, she does if you want to lock her to Fiorina and you want to give her a healer on top of that. You know, she does. You can technically, you know, like I was mentioning the Taser team before, you can technically go ahead, use MH on her, you know, and then who would be the healer? I guess Chevy heals. No, you wouldn't be using Chevy and Fiorina. It's a little tough, right? Like, we don't have like a dedicated healer that I'm thinking of, you know. I don't, my brain no worky, but I don't think that we have a dedicated healer for the team. Let me check. So if I were to build a Ryzen, I guess you could use Bennett. I guess that would be the option. Or like a team like this, although I don't know how good this team would be if you don't have like, well, C3 Shieldon technically doesn't buff, right? So you could use MH on a team like this where Shieldon is healing and stuff, and then, you know, Fiorina will go ahead and take Raiden's, you know, stuff. But again, you're still balancing so many stats, you know, like you're balancing so many stats, right? Raiden has to then go ahead and balance on every, you know, energy recharge and all the other roles too. It's not as easy as, you know, just, you know, switching to MH, right? It's a lot of building, right? You have to build the character, and to build the character, you know, 36% crit rate makes it a lot easier, but it also raises the bar for how much stuff you have to make up, because you have a whole 75% damage bonus you lose from not using this set. So yeah, it's pretty hard to, you know, I would absolutely say that I regret Raiden. I don't want to, right? A lot of people, you know, think I like to hate on characters and whatever. I just simply think about, like, has this character been useful to me, is one of the first questions I ask. And then I'm like, how strong is the character, right? Because maybe I haven't, you know, used them, but they've been pretty strong, like Kinich, right? Kinich is really strong, you know? Raiden hasn't been useful, and she hasn't really been strong. It's as simple as that. She just doesn't fulfill a role on my account anymore, so therefore I don't use the character. That's just how it has happened. That's how I have, you know, looked into her. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.